Your defense has gotten a little, taking a step back in the last couple of weeks. Offense has gotten a little better. Why do you think that is?
I think that this time of year, you know, some of the teams we've been playing have done well. I feel like the three-point line is the area that I'm afraid of the most. You know, I feel like we were so concerned about not fouling that there has been lately like a real determined conservative effort to just simply guard your man. I think that has produced a reasonable amount of like solidarity, but it's also like, you know, not made us as aggressive. And I think finding that balance of not fouling a lot while still maintaining a level of aggression, especially with Robin and TJ, I think that we can do better there and less fearful of the foul. I think that the ripple effects of some of the schemes that we've been looking at where you're in rotation, which is to me still the holy grail on defense, how do you avoid rotations? We're fixing up because it produced, you know, barrage of three-point shots. And I feel like that our defensive decline is completely like related to those two areas. We need to be, you know, a little bit more disruptive, and I think that we, through some schematic things like pick and roll reds, and they throw it into, you know, mismatch, and then they throw it around the gym. That stuff produces a lot of threes, and I hope to shore things up through those areas.
Did you know, or did you have a good sense before Marco got here that he could be as effective as he's been on takes to the rim, cuts? Or is that something where it's like, get him here, see what he can do, and get a better idea of the
I feel like I had a pretty good handle of who he is as a person and what he was as a player. You know, I followed him for many years. You know, I've coached against him for a lot of years, and I think just he's played for my friends. You know, so like you get a chance to speak to them, and it's not a mystery. I think the exciting thing is he's a better defensive player than I initially was going to give him credit for. He's prideful. He and I joked around a lot about it initially in the recruitment. You better let me coach you defensively. I'll leave you alone offensively. I'm going to coach you defensively, and he's responded. He's a prideful person, and you know, I think that he has been better on that side of the ball than I anticipated.
Has there been consideration to maybe rest Joel?
All the time, like it is with all of our guys. And so this Joel thing, I guess, is heated up with the rest issue, and it's true. We're always mindful of that, and he's so highly competitive, and he wants to play, which we all kind of appreciate and respect, that at times there's a toggle going on. You know, I think it's my responsibility, our organization's responsibility, to ask the same question of Ben Simmons. He's logging big men, J.J. Redick, Robert Covington, Dario Saric. And so walking this very slippery slope, not incredibly well-defined answer to how do you win games, move up the food chain and try to get as high a, you know, seed as you can, and still preserve, you know, your players. Send me a letter on how that works. And I feel like we're close to understanding the best that it can work, but the rest notion with our especially high minutes guys, led by Joel, is always on our mind.
I think you said a few weeks ago that it kind of surprised you that Ben hadn't hit that proverbial wall or experienced it much. What do you attribute that to, that he's been able to kind of push through it in that way?
I don't know. I mean, I'll go to the simplest answer, is that he's an incredible athlete. He really is an incredible athlete, and so, you know, it's not like he's 18 years old anymore either. Maybe that's got something to do with it. But to date, like, he plays, you know, decent quantity of minutes and feels good. You know, I'm sure there's some fatigue like everybody in the league, but you know, led by the sports science people that I'm completely directed by, and, you know, a coach's gut feel. So far we haven't seen it, but it's always on my mind. Like, this is the number one thing for me, is how do we keep our spirits up, our health high, because that will reflect better defense, that will reflect, I think, a better commitment to what we're doing all across the board. pace to which we play, screen setting, pace in a half-court environment as well as a full court, a higher level of a sting to our defense. And that health thing, spirit thing is always on my mind.
Now that you're back from this road trip, you got a lot of playoff teams out of the way. The remaining schedule, very few current playoff teams. What do you want the team to be aware of as you start this stretch?
The first thing is to not believe that. Is like, I feel like we can beat most teams in the league and we can lose to any of them. And we've shown that. And, we're not, I'm trying to avoid that thing that's flying around, and I understand it. I'm not believing it. And I don't want our guys to believe it. We want to play good basketball. We want to stay healthy. We want to move up the food chain as high as we can as far as the Eastern Conference standings go. But as it relates to, it's getting easier, that's not even close to what's on my mind. Don't tell Brooklyn that. Look at what they did to Charlotte the other night. You roll out D'Angelo Russell and Crabbe and Dinwiddie and Damari Carroll and their young pogo stick, that team can score. And just look what they did to us in Brooklyn. So I think the first thing I would say, Jess, is don't believe it, fellas. Don't read it, don't listen, don't believe it.
How much, if at all, do you point back to that stretch when things are going great, and then you played the Suns, and then you played the Lakers? Do you remind the guys of that at all, or no?
No, I don't. I feel like we're far past that. This young team, I said it giveth and it taketh. We have our ups and downs. We're trying to reduce those more and more and more as the real part of the season, gets a lot closer and closer. There's no lack of respect for anybody that we have. I think that, when we become not purposeful or as focused or not have the ability to arrest runs, that composure, the intellectual side of the game, that's what's frustrating for me. And so, you take the, Milwaukee game, we were in a position where we needed to, as a group, shore some things up. We're still winning on the road, and, they went on a big run, and we didn't have the ability that night to arrest that. And so, those things interest me more than there's this level of complacency and we're playing against a team that's not in the playoffs. That's I hope that's not a part of our DNA. It's certainly not a part of mine or any messaging that comes out of my mouth.
We've talked about physical fatigue all the time with Joel and other players. Do you guys account for mental fatigue too with the young team going through this for the first time? I mean, Ben, Joe, even players like Rob, they haven't played on a team that has played meaningful games in March.
We do, Rich, and according to my sports science people, we just left the most difficult part of our season. We played 9 games in 15 days, 7 were on the road, there were 15 travel days, there were a handful of really good playoff type teams, and we sort of come out of it still not seeing daylight. We got 4 this week, we got 4 the next week, back-to-back this week, back-to-back next week. And so that component of the mental side of it, where we're effectively on the road for 2 weeks, is real. And, it's part of my job as the gatekeeper of all of this, is to feel the team and to, from time to time, give them some time off. Try to find a way to keep their spirits up, their fitness at an all-time high, and deliver them to a court ready to throw punches. And the mental fatigue part of it is as much to do with it, oftentimes at this stage of the year, as the physical fatigue is.
With Joel, it's often hard for maybe the regular person to see that he's doing bad if they were to look at a box score, because he still puts up good numbers. But what is it that you see that, he's saying I've had bad games lately. What do you see that's maybe changed in the last couple of weeks?
The first thing that I go to when Joel tells me I'm tired and I'm feeling a little sore, I go immediately to how he responds out of a post. Is he going to get stubborn, and try to just go solve the world's problems all by himself, which is the sort of endearing competitive side of him? Is he going to be like a distributor? When you all dig into the analytics and math and say, what does Joel Embiid produce, points per possession when he has the ball, you're going to see an incredibly impressive number. But what's more exciting is when you say, what does he do when he has the ball at a post and he passes out of it? It's even more exciting. And any way you shape it, Joel Embiid with the ball is pretty exciting. And so now the responsibility to make decisions from that floor spot of what do? How do you handle that? That's where I judge, for me, fatigue the quickest.
And so you've seen like a decline in that recently?
Only at times, and then the fourth period begins, and he comes out. He's just played more basketball than he's ever played in his life. And now it's starting to get to the interesting part of the season, and there's pride and competitiveness, and like the other night, he got his fourth foul with 9 minutes left, 10 minutes, whatever it was. He didn't really want to come out, and he's got to come out. But that thing that we're talking about is all driven because he's so fiercely competitive.
This is a smaller thing. I noticed you've used JJ as a screener more and more in plays. What type of element? Why is that successful, I guess?
If you go back, this is my 17th year in this league, and you just wouldn't believe the screen setter that Stockton was.
Yeah, he's good.
Unbelievable. And he was borderline dirty, extremely physical, could get underneath Big's rib cages. And because nobody wanted to leave him, he became an amazing screen setter and really freed up Hornacek, Malone. And when I first came to the NBA, I just couldn't believe the tenacity and how successful. And it was born out of two things. First, that personality trait, highly competitive, wants to be free up a teammate, all that physical stuff. And then the reality of people wouldn't leave him because he could score. Then you fast forward a decade later and you watch Nash. Same thing. Get under people's rib cages. Nobody wanted to leave him because he could shoot. You start studying how people use Korver over the years lately. Where they are the screen setters because people don't want to leave them. And JJ has sort of a hybrid of all those types of skills and personality traits. And from time to time, I like using him as a screen setter for those reasons.